Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. The Broadcasting Commission has issued a directive that has all Jamaica talking and arguing. And let me quote from the statement they sent out. They said their directive now requires broadcasters to take immediate steps to prevent the transmission of any recorded material, audio or video that promotes and or glorifies illegal activity such as scamming, illegal use and abuse of drugs like Molly, illegal or harmful use of guns or other offensive weapons, jungle justice, or any other form of illegal or criminal activity. And this includes any edited song which has that kind of content, including live editing and original edits. Later in the program, we're going to be hearing from industry insiders. We also, of course, want to hear from you. So remember our hashtag, it's TVJ All Angles. You can WhatsApp us as well, 3810072. That's 876-3810072, and give us your first name and your general location. But first, the Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission, Cordell Green, joins us now. Cordell Green, thank you so much for joining us on All Angles.
Hi, Dan. It's my pleasure.
So, as I said, the whole of Jamaica is now buzzing about this directive, all kinds of arguments. But before we get into the meat of the matter, so to speak, some of these songs have been around for a while. So why now?
Well, first of all, as I have said elsewhere, regulators have to be very careful when they enter upon these types of references. We're not into publicity and we're not wagonist, and we don't respond to every change in lingua. There must be proportionality in what you do. So first of all, it is not now. We have investigated and ruled on violations of the regulations. But what members of the public don't realize is we have been very deliberate. When you hear radio stations and television stations apologizing for violation of the regulations, and there have been apologies in relation to some of the content we're dealing with, we don't ask them to call the names of artists and the names of songs, because we are really not dealing with the artist and the songs. We're dealing with the responsibilities of the gatekeepers. But we have intervened with this directive because, having ruled on a number of cases, we have determined that it is systemic. It's one of these rare occasions when you step in, the pendulum has swung or is swinging to an extreme. You need to bring it back to the center, and you need to do it across industry.
But perhaps that's the point, though, because has the pendulum swung too far? Has the Broadcasting Commission waited so long to issue this directive that the horse gone through the gate long time and I can't pull him back?
Well, this is always a continuum. There is always going to be that conversation about when you enter upon a reference, but we also have to be very careful not to unwittingly give greater exposure and promotion to some of what we are concerned about. And remember, after all, that the first responsibility is with the gatekeepers. This is a free and democratic society. Jamaica is ranked in the top 10 countries for free expression for very good reasons. We have always been very measured and objective in our regulatory interventions, and we give opportunities, first of all, to the people who manage radio stations and television stations to function in accordance with the regulations and their licenses. When we have come to the conclusion that we have ruled on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or how many cases, but this is something that is permeating the industry, then we take this type of action. So it is not, and incidentally, I invite anybody to go on our website, www.broadcom.org, and you will see that the Broadcasting Commission deals with these matters on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. We publish quarterly reports. This is really nothing new in the sense of intervening and dealing with content. It is just a particular type of intervention that, as I've said, is across the board in the form of a directive, and we have made it public. In the other cases, what we do is we engage with the television station or the radio station, and people hear an apology, and they don't always make the connection between those apologies and regulatory action.
You made the point there that Jamaica is ranked very highly in terms of freedom of expression. Is this not, though, clamping down on that freedom of expression?
No, because people are free to express themselves, as I've pointed out to people who seem to have misunderstood this completely. This is not about artists. We artists create content, and they are informed by their experiences, dysfunctional experiences, liberating experiences. They create art in all kinds of circumstances. This is about a particular space that is governed by standards and rules. Over the air, free to air broadcasting. Nobody is controlling any studio. And as you have heard some people say, a bit misguidedly, in my opinion, they can go and put what they want on alternative platforms such as YouTube and IG. Let me just say one thing, Dion. I am actually now in Geneva, the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator Summit. We're talking about synthetic biology. We're talking about the metaverse. We're talking about traditional and new media. Everybody here, scientists, diplomats, leaders, are very, very concerned about the absence of standards. And it is really misleading people to suggest that these alternative platforms don't have standards and that they're not taking off content. You know what is different? Some of them don't know about what we're actually singing about. B, some of them don't care about the disintegration of Jamaica's social fabric. And C, some of them respond to well-organized civic groups and parenting groups, and they complain in places like the United States of America and take off a lot of their content. So this notion that, we can sing and we can promote criminality and we can promote all kinds of things, and you can do what you want on radio because we're just going to move onto other platforms, those days are numbered, because everybody is accepting that you just cannot operate in this digital economy and society without standards and the sense of...
Are you saying regulation is coming to the internet?
Oh, well, I tell you something. If you follow what is going on in Europe, they are far advanced. Everything is being looked at. Exponential technologies, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, the metaverse, in fact, which is the next generation of social networking, deeply immersive, very troubling for a lot of people, having to do with the socialization of children, the formation of their memories. And now the discussion is about whether a few tech companies should really be left to define reality. So there is this global discussion that is taking place. The long traditions, democratic traditions in many countries being undermined because people are really not paying sufficient attention to the impact of what it is they do and what it is they create. And this runs the gamut from fake news to deep fake to what we're here talking about in Jamaica in a very narrow way. It's not about free. In fact, it has everything to do with freedom of expression, because freedom of expression is protected and preserved when there is regard for the responsibilities that come with those freedoms.
Let me share a comment from you made by university lecturer, an expert in popular culture, Dr. Isis Semaj. And this is in response to the part of your directive that says also banned our, live edited songs, including live edits and original edits, as well as the use of near-sounding words as substitutes for offensive lyrics, expletives, or profanities. And she says, what are examples of near-sounding words? Who the tasked with creating this list? Would Jolly be banned for sounding like Molly? By this logic, is fun also banned? Would a song celebrating mudcloth be banned? And she said, I'm joking a bit, I jest a bit, but this does seem like moral policing. No.
Well,
so,
with the
complaints
greatest
there.
well,
First of
with
all,
the
is
greatest
it moral policing?
well, it's not policing. It is carrying out regulatory functions. It is about
You're
making.
splitting hairs a little bit here, though.
No, I'm not splitting hairs because it is not, it is really not policing. Policing conveys an impression, it conjures up a police state. This is a free and democratic society, widely respected across the world for our approach to digital literacy, our approach to electronic media regulation. In fact, we are modeled across the world. Jamaica's digital media and information literacy skills framework, which we are developing, our emphasis on digital literacy is quite pioneering. So I don't like the notion of moral policing. We're not inventing anything.
I
These
noticed you object to the word policing, but you had no difficulty with the idea that what you're doing does relate to morality, moral standards, correct?
Well, you really can't escape that. That the law is predicated on that, and we're operating within a framework of laws. So you can't escape ethics and morality in these questions. But I agree that when you talk about morality, you get into a space of wide subjectivity. And this is why we have to adjudicate. Going back to your question about why didn't this happen earlier? Because you need to consider these matters. You need to be proportional in your response. And the questions being raised by the professor may take us to the extreme. But guess what? The Broadcasting Commission doesn't operate in a vacuum. It is bounded by the rules that apply to administrative bodies. It has to be proportional in what it does. It cannot be discriminating or discriminate against groups of people, particular genres. It is subject to administrative review. So the
Okay.
commission has to consider constitutional rights. It has to consider legislative provisions in its work.
Okay,
And
I'm just
when we make our judgments, they are subject to objective review.
all right.
What I can tell you
I need to
is
wrap up.
we
I
have
need to wrap
never
up.
been challenged
I
in
need to
a
wrap
court.
up, Cordell, but just one final question. Answer as quickly for me as you can. What happens next? Because there are a lot of questions, as the tweet from the professor indicated and other people have said who are in music and in broadcasting. How are some of these gray areas to be dealt with and ironed out? So tell us very quickly what happens next.
We continue to engage with industry in the usual way. Those who have licenses, those who are program managers need to tighten up their oversight. The commission will receive complaints from members of the public. It will continue to monitor, and it will continue to adjudicate the way it has done in the past. Adjudication that does not result in challenges in court, adjudication that supports Jamaica's reputation as a country known as free and democratic, a standard bearer in responsible broadcast.
So just in a word, any questions then and queries and gray areas will be ironed out on a case-by-case basis. Is that it?
And in fact, that's an important point you're making. That's the way we do it all the time. It's not by dogma. We rule. Sometimes stations push back. We review what they have to say. If what they say is reasonable, we adjust our positions. It's not a dictatorship.
Okay, gonna have to leave it there. Cordell Green, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome, dear.
And remember, our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. When we come back after the break, we'll be talking with industry spokespersons and, of course, hearing your views. Remember, our WhatsApp line 3810072. Soon come.